Hello, welcome to another episode of the I Am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel podcast. We are up at around episode 235, I believe. And I am delighted to have a new friend of mine on today's episode to have a good old natter. If you are new here, welcome. If you don't already like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is you do on whichever platform you're on, please do that so you don't miss out on any episodes. And anything you hear today that you think, wow, which will be a lot of this conversation, I can guarantee, and you think of somebody else that needs to hear it, please do share with them. Chris Frier, welcome to the show.
Hi, and well, thank you very much for inviting me.
My absolute pleasure. So we met through the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine's Voices of Lived Experience group. We really need to shorten that title down because it's a lot of words. And we connected through the regular Zoom groups and then also on LinkedIn. And the place that I actually want to start today's conversation is you have a hashtag, which is hashtag BVOMT. And when you explained it to me, I was like, I love that. So explain it to the audience and tell us where it came from.
Okay, so the hashtag BVOMT stands for best version of myself today.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and I created it really out of my own journey with chronic health, really. And I think it's a fantastic mantra for everybody to adopt because growth is not linear. It is an up and down journey, no matter what you are facing, coping with. It's an up and down journey. But what you've got to remember is that every opportunity is a chance for change and learning. And just because you didn't hit what you think you should have hit today, there's no reason to give up because tomorrow is another day.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. I heard somebody say yesterday, health is a journey, not a destination, and
Mm.
happiness is also a journey, is not the destination. And I feel like that best version of myself today has that kind of underlying ethos of like, and a lot of it's around acceptance. Because I don't know about yourself, but when I got diagnosed initially, I was in battle with my condition. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to get to the other side of this. I'm going to win. And I was angry with everything, the world, society, my body, the disease, the medical community, the pharmaceutical people. Like, I was just angry with everybody. And it wasn't until I went for some therapy and we spoke about acceptance and did CBT around acceptance that I then was able to let a lot of that anger go and say,
Mm.
okay. And it is very much about that waking up. Well, how am I today? What do I need for me before anybody else? And then if I'm being the best I can for me, then I can be the best I can for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you talked about your anger right at the beginning of your diagnosis, and I absolutely reflect your words, your feelings, absolutely, and I suppose when you look at hashtag BVOMT, it develops into like a drop down, if you like, sort of like best drops down to beliefs, and I
Mm.
think that our beliefs are crucial. I think that for me, right in the beginning of my journey with this diagnosis, um, I had this really strong belief that health professionals knew best. I had little control over, what was going to happen. I took absolutely no responsibility for what was going on inside of me. It was something that I'd, I'd caught, if you like, and yeah, I spent many years being angry at that, and I spent many years focusing on all the things that were happening and all the things I perceived as being taken away from me. Um, and of course, whatever you focus on, you get more of, don't you?
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Yeah, yeah, that resonation of things being taken away. And I remember one of the nurses saying to me quite early on in my journey, "You're just going to have to grieve your old life."
Mm,
And I remember being shocked by that and again angered by that. And she was right. There could have been a nicer way that that discussion could have happened, but she was right. There was parts of my old life I did have to grieve and let go of, because my old life got me to the position I was in that day sitting in that office, and things
mm,
were going to have to change.
mm,
And then it's how do we then find a gift from that? Like, how did you
mm.
find the gifts in what you had been handed?
Well, I'll be honest with you. What you just said there prompted me to ask you a question, really, to
Okay,
start with, if you don't mind.
go for
You
it.
know, that health professional that was saying to you, you've just got to grieve your old life. How about if they had delivered a message of, let's celebrate this new opportunity for change? How would that have made you feel, Jen? You know?
It would have given me hope,
Mm.
because up until, well, I was going to say up until that point, I had never dealt with grief. I had, up until 4 years ago, I had buried grief. Every time somebody died, something happened, I pretended everything was okay and ploughed on. So for those words, those specific words, you just need to grieve. It was like, I don't even know how to do that, because I used to drink my way through that, and I'm not drinking alcohol anymore. I gave up alcohol in 2014 and this is 2017. I don't have those old crutches that I used to have. I used to go and teach loads of fitness classes, because when I was sad, that made me feel better, made me feel happy. I now physically can't do that. All those crutches have been taken away from me. So how the fuck do you deal with that? But
Mm.
if it had been that, how are we going to celebrate the changes that you're going to make to be able to be the best version of yourself? Then
Mm.
yeah, it would have been such a different. I think I would have walked out that room feeling lighter instead of heavier. Here's another responsibility of something that needs to be processed.
Mm. Yeah, I think, coming back to your question, I suppose the neurologist that delivered the diagnosis to me, look, he was a good guy. I was fortunate enough to access him privately, if you like, in the beginning staging. Um, and he wasn't negative about it, if you like. He suggested that I don't visit Dr. Google, which of course I did.
We all do.
Um, and I really did get sucked into all of the negative messages that there were around the condition I have, and weirdly, even today, if you like, whenever anyone hears that I have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, you get that, I'm so sorry kind of reaction from people. But yeah, I mean, I just dialed into all of the negativity in the beginning. There were no positive messages at all, you know. And I still think that even in 2020, 25, it is 2025, isn't it? Yeah. I still
Well,
think that there are very few positive messages associated with chronic health conditions.
mhm.
And I aim to change that.
I'm here for it. We need to. I mean, this was something that came up at conference in Brighton about how do you have those more positive, like when we were speaking in our group session to the doctors, like how do you have that more positive conversation with your patient? How do you give them some hope without false promises? You can still give people hope. And you do that by pointing them in the direction of people like ourselves in the lived experience group who are doing remarkable things that are not remarkable.
Mm.
Remember Pollyanna when she was doing her presentation, and she said, I remember she said, none of us are special, which I was a little bit offended by, but I get where she's coming from because like none of us are superheroes that have got any magic abilities. We are human beings living in exactly the same world, all under different circumstances, of course, but most of lifestyle medicine is free stuff. So that breaks the financial barriers for the information that is out there of the simple steps that you can do to start you on the right path.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right there that we are not special. We are not. The reality is, and I suppose this is my own area of expertise, if you like, yeah. And I suppose I'm bound to move towards this. But we are a group of people who have changed our beliefs. And by changing our beliefs, we've created different thoughts, and our thoughts are creating a new reality for us. You know, we all have an innate ability to heal from within. We just have to create the environment that we want to walk into, you know. And I suppose, you know, I've spent, like I say, you know, it's almost 24 years now of life with MS, if you like. And look, I've learned huge amounts. You know, my journey took me to the deepest, darkest places that any human being can go. And, you know, it it almost ended my life. You know, I was a split second away from gone, you know, because I actually thought that I had no purpose in life anymore. And I really truly believe that all the people that knew me, including my children, you know, and I have 4, would be better off without me because I saw myself as a burden completely, you know. But that day created the possibility for a new belief, a new environment for me. You know, it wasn't instantaneous. It was this all of a sudden. Oh, it was just I was just opening up a new book and starting to read what was in it. You know, and you know a message that I would probably want to give out to lots of people who are on this chronic health journey. Okay, and it might be a little bit controversial, right? So I apologise for that.
I'm
And
here for the controversy.
pardon,
I'm
pardon.
here for the controversy.
Yeah, and you know, all my beliefs are my own. You know, with multiple sclerosis, look, I've been an MS. I've been an MS researcher. I've been an advisor for an MS charity. I've dealt with lots and lots of people with multiple sclerosis, and I really have on this journey. I've run a wellbeing centre where we used really specialised exercise equipment for people to gain muscle, if you like, and gain control over their bodies. But the change came for me was when one day, and I do sign up, and uh, I do reflect, if you like, some of the disease protocols that they have around MS. You know, I was a guy that had glandular fever in my late teens, really badly, and I developed MS in my early 40s. I've also had the hepatitis B vaccine with the 10-year booster, which is another disease model, if you like. Yeah. However, I thought to myself, I didn't catch multiple sclerosis. I'm not infectious. I can't give it to anybody. You can't catch it from me, and I can't catch it from you. So how the hell did I get it? And I suddenly started to create this belief that I had created an environment within myself for this condition to take hold of me. And I decided to set out to uncreate that environment, you know. I started to deal with past traumas, you know, and I think they are real starters for chronic health. If you say if you or let's say coping strategies to deal with which create chronic health later on down the road. Yeah. You know, you talked about alcohol. Look, I was in the license trade for 20 odd years. And I would say, and I wouldn't have said back then, but I would say now, looking at me, I was definitely a functioning alcoholic, without a doubt. You know, I could probably drink anyone under the table and not think I'd had a drink. You know, but it was all taking a toll on my body, wasn't it? And it was all coping tactics to not deal with the real issues until, of course, my body give me something to go, hang on a minute, you've got to deal with this now. You know, there's no getting away with this. You either drown or you swim. And I decided after some time I was going to be a swimmer.
I am so glad. I am so glad that that was the decision that was made at the right moment, very
Yeah.
much at the right moment. You said something there, and I was going to ask about it, and it's completely gone out of my head.
I have that effect on people.
It's also I'm over that age where these sort of things happen more frequently. Right, let me think.
Mm,
What were we talking about there? We were talking about beliefs from the inside, eating the conditions, alcohol. Yes, it's slowly coming back to me. Yeah, when I look back on my whole journey, like you were saying, you'd had the glandular fever and a certain vaccine and stuff. And when I look back at all the things that have happened to me from birth, when I was born, I wasn't breathing. I was born at a time where where women weren't breastfeeding their kids. Um, there was eczema in my body from 18 months old. There was death in the family at 11 when I was 11. There was the alcohol that started when I was about 13. There was over exercising. There was all these wee things, and it is, as you say, the coping strategies. And I have beaten myself up about these things. There's also all the travel vaccines as well, because I travelled all over and had all of them at the one time.
mm,
And then when I lived in Australia, I also had the flu vaccine for the first one and only time. I took that flu vaccine and I was ill for 2 weeks after it, like
mm.
just not right. And I was like, that I'm never taking that again. That's like I only took it because my work were giving it out for free, and I knew nothing about anything at that time. So, and I've beaten myself up about all those things that I did that have got me to this place, and that isn't helpful because there's no compassion there. And I
Mm.
then went on this journey of what is compassion? What is vulnerability? How do you do that? And having to learn these, what should be basic human skills, but because you've been in survival mode for such a long time, you've survived to this point, and okay, some of the stuff that's happened or some of the stuff you've chosen to do or done under guidance of other people has potentially loaded the bullets into the gun, and then the gun has finally fired because it was ready to go. Now what are you dealing with? You have to start with forgiveness to yourself for all of that, and then compassion to
Mm.
yourself before you even start thinking about dishing it out to anybody else.
Mm.
Because I think for me, it's easier to be compassionate and forgiving to other people than it is to be for myself. Do you find that? Like, are you your harshest critic?
Yeah, well, again, look, that's the work I do. I work on that internal language, and we say things to ourselves and about ourselves that we would probably balk at or think it's rude to say to someone else about them, or we would, but we seem to be quite happy to be our worst critic in a very horrible way, you know. So it's what I work on, and I think you talked about forgiveness, wasn't you? Um, I think understanding is a potentially a more powerful approach, really, because why do you want to forgive yourself for stuff that you didn't actually know about? It's more about learning and growing away from situations. Every situation that we face, we have the potential to learn from, don't we? So it's understanding, I think, is a more powerful approach than forgiveness, personally.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jen?
Interesting. Because I'm wondering, is there an element of semantics of what my understanding of forgiveness is and your understanding of understanding is? And could be an element of that. And then maybe I've just read books or listened to people that's how they've influenced my thought patterns and my understanding of the understanding of
Yeah,
forgiveness.
yeah, yeah.
Like spiraling out. So it's then being open and willing to keep asking the questions, keep being curious, keep being and it's I've spoken to quite a few people recently that talked about, I'm blanking on the lady's name, Byron Katie's work, The Works, when she does the four
Yeah.
questions, like, is this true? Is this really true? How do you know it's true? And it's like, just keep going to that. Even when you think you've got the answer, just keep going with that.
Mm.
Where do you think that inner critic comes from? Why do you think it's so prevalent?
I think the inner critic comes from experiences and traumas from the past, and they are usually installed in us by someone else's opinion about ourselves. Yeah, it's something, as a hypnotherapist, I understand about the open mind, if you like. Yeah, and when we're children, again, now I've got a blockage because I'm struggling to remember the frequency of the brain when we're a child. I think it's theta.
Yes, up till 7, you're in that theta state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's actually the hypnotic state that I try and create for any of my clients that I work with. Yeah, and that's where we're open to suggestion. Yeah, and when you're a child, even if you can't communicate, whatever's going on in your world around you, you know, with them two or one or whatever human beings that are giants in your life, and they're gods really. So whatever they're saying or whatever they're doing, it creates your beliefs. You know, and I think that that will has the potential to continue as we go through life if it gets reinforced. You know, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Yeah, and it's slightly older, but I struggled at school badly. You know, and it was a time that dyslexia and things like that were not recognised. And the teacher, when I was in the junior school, sitting in tables that were like a square, and the teacher was at the front of the class. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
The teacher used to delight in making me stand up in front of the class and read from a book, knowing that I was going to struggle with it, and he used to laugh at me. And of course, the children in the class followed suit. And it wasn't really until my late 50s, you know, that I discovered that I've got a condition called, I've got mild dyslexia, but I've got a condition called Arlene syndrome. And what used to happen, and it still does, but I've got special glasses now. The words move on the bloody page. So I would try and read out of a book, and I would lose the end of the flaming sentence, and then maybe I'd pick it up 2 sentences or 3 sentences further on, or miss words out, and it kind of didn't make sense. That set up a firm belief around me being thick. I was thick, you know, and my dad reinforced that absolutely, you know, and I carried that really with me for most of my life, you know, but I'm not thick, and I've
You
kind
are.
of only just realised that.
You are not. Your brain just learns things in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to credit my wife Joy really, because you know she picked me up years after my first marriage failed, but she picked me up, and she kind of grabbed hold of me by the ear holes and went, "You ain't thick, listen," and kind of taught me how to pronounce words properly, and help me spell, help me write, help me, and I shall be forever thankful to her. She's the love of my life, Jim, and
They're an
yeah.
absolute, she's an absolute joy. I got to meet her at conference
It's her
briefly.
name.
She was named well. She was definitely named well. Um, yeah, that's so shit that you had to go through all of that. But then Joy wouldn't have been able to do what she's done if you were able to read and write. And you write beautifully. Like your posts on LinkedIn are amazing. Like so thoughtful, so insightful, inspiring. Like just they're
Thank you.
amazing.
I've just put an article out on LinkedIn
Amazing.
about suffering.
Nice. Nice.
My It's my pet 8 word. You know,
When the doctor says you're going to suffer with this disease for the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, do you know what? One of the things that and you see this on the news more than anything, you know, and when they're talking about these chronic health conditions, and they always use that term, people suffering with da da da. Yeah. Now, if you're newly diagnosed, it really does set you up to believe that, doesn't it? You know, and I wish that they could change that message to people living with or people affected by, because it creates a completely different possibility, doesn't it? You know, and a bit before you was talking, and I love listening to you talk, Jen. I really absolutely get inspired by what you say, right? But you were talking about, and I wrote down just one word out of it. You used the word open, open. And I think that we, especially as a group, a team, and everyone, need to come at everything with an open mind. You know, and I think that whenever I do any public speaking, one of the questions that I ask at the beginning is always, do you have an open mind? And everyone always say yes, of course, yeah, but they haven't. You know, they're listening to me with closed mind thinking until, of course, the end. You know, when I deliver the blow, if you like, the message that you know, whatever you think might be wrong. It might, well, it's not even wrong. It's there's a different approach. There's a different possibility. There's difference, isn't there? You know, and I think as I listen to you, Emma, Pollyanna, and all the good people, we're all doing the same thing, but we all come at it from different directions and different approaches. And there's nothing new, is there? It's just our interpretation of, can I swear?
And you
Well, it's
swear.
only a mild word.
Okay, dead.
It's our interpretation of what is the bleeding obvious, isn't it?
Is bleeding a swear word?
Anyway,
Is
ah,
bleeding a
well,
swear word?
yeah, well,
That's high
it's
up
a,
in my list of okay words.
yeah. Well, I think you used a much worse one earlier, so
Oh
that's all
yeah,
right.
I dropped an F-bomb quite early in.
It's a sign of intelligence, darling.
So they tell me. I'm rolling with it. I'm rolling with it. Yeah, the open mind thing. I like to think I've got an open mind until somebody challenges me about something that I don't like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not actually as open-minded as I like to think. But I remember back when I was in college, I had gone back to college when I was 30 to retrain, and one of my lecturers had advised me to read a book by Carol Dweck. I think that's her name. I can't remember what the book's called, but it's about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset.
Mm.
And because he was like, you've got a growth mindset, you need to know this, you need to nurture this. Like my lecturer was brilliant, Andy. He had very much that mindset of there's so much that's possible, and he really helped nurture that in me and make me and help me see that that was a thing and that it's something that you can't just take for granted. And it can also be trained into somebody who's more got the fixed mindset. There's ways that you can help them start to open up and start to have more of that kind of open growth mindset, because you see it so much. Like if you look at politics around the world, and it's the left and the right and the blues or the reds, or even in football, whatever team, and everybody's polarized. But if you take a step back and look at what is it that you actually want, everybody just wants to be happy and everybody
Yes,
just wants to be healthy. But I don't know, is it the media because that keeps people more engaged if they're angry? Is it just a part of our psyche and our ego that nourishes this? Like, is it social media that does it? Like, there's so many things that kind of fuel that. You've got to be on a side, you've got to have a team, pick a team and stick with it, rather than being able to say, well, actually, I agree with a little bit of that and I agree with a little bit of that. How do we make it work instead of
Mm.
always having to be a battle?
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about open mind and closed mind thinking. Now, when I did my NLP practitioner course, one of the first things that you learn is how we process all the information that's coming into us. And generally, we delete, distort, and generalize everything that's coming in. Okay? And I'll give you a situation because we're in the health arena, aren't we? With British society, and we're meeting hundreds of really switched on, open-minded doctors and health professionals that are coming into our society now, which I am hugely excited about. Right? But I'll give you a situation where when I I had an incomplete attempt, but serious attempt to end my life in 2007. In 2008, my neurologist, because I was getting worse, if you like, he ordered an enhanced MRI scan and delivered the news and the results of that I had now entered the secondary progressive stage of the condition. He was withdrawing DMDs because back then there wasn't anything for secondary progressive, although I didn't think the DMDs had helped me anyway. Yeah. But he also said to me, he said, look, in view of your mental health issues, you need to get your head around the fact that the way that this condition is progressing, you're going to be in a wheelchair by 2012. Okay, and I didn't like that, but that was his view, if you like. Joy came into my life in 2010, so things were changing. And I was changing, and I was trying out all these different things, and I was dabbling with meditation and dabbling with diet, dabbling with exercise, dabbling with everything. But I found myself using a wheelchair more and more and more because I did when I was going outside. I used to fall over a lot, and I broke my fingers, I cut my head open, I've done Utah, I've fallen, but not a wheelchair thing, but I've fallen down the bloody stairs. I don't know how many times, that sort of stuff. So it was safer for me to use a wheelchair. And of course, I used to use a wheelchair for my yearly checkups with the neurologist. And he was really happy to see me when I was in my chair because his prediction had come true, hadn't it? And he'd say, nothing new out there, but let's hope for a cure. Let's hope, right? See you in a year. Off you go. But I'm working on myself and I'm getting results. And the first thing that happened to me in a meditation session, I found that I could start to wiggle my toes in my left foot, which is something I couldn't do. And I thought, wow. And then I started to be able to tap my left foot. When that happened, I thought, wow, right, what can I achieve? What can I achieve? Now, the last time I saw my neurologist was 2017 when I walked into his surgery. And he looked at me and he went, what drugs have I put you on? What drugs is it? And I said, well, I'm not on any drugs, am I? He said there was nothing you could do for me. And he looked at me in disbelief, looked me up and down. And he said, well, what are you doing? You look like you're getting better. So I told him. And he dismissed that. And he's never seen me since. But that comes back to what I said to you about open mind and closed mind thinking. He had closed mind thinking.
Yeah.
And he just deleted what had happened there because it was against his belief. We don't need health practitioners like that.
We do not.
We need open-minded thinking. Because, Jen, listen, we've got a chronic health explosion in our communities today, yeah?
Yeah.
And what they're doing now is not working, is it? We're
No.
just maintaining people in a place of sickness, not health.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
I was listening to a podcast last night. So Catherine McEwen Foundation is a Scottish charity for people living with inflammatory bowel disease, so Crohn's or colitis. And they had the podcast that they released last night was two researchers who work in Glasgow and are doing research in Glasgow. And it's the first time that I've listened to anybody talking about inflammatory bowel disease that has given me hope, because they are looking for ways to get people into curative remission. One of them's a dietitian, and his whole thing is about diet, because when people have got inflammatory bowel disease, one of the things that can be very beneficial for a subgroup of the patients is to go on a liquid only diet. So he's exploring what is that liquid only diet. Adults have a really hard time adhering to it because it's milkshakes and they're really, really sweet, and that's all you can have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like you don't get any, you're not allowed to have any other food while you're on this, and it's an 8 to 12 week program. And he's like, no matter how much you like chocolate milkshakes, you're not going to like them after 8 to 12 weeks. And even the different flavors, I've tried them and they're rotten. I couldn't even finish one. Never mind try and do 8 weeks of it. But what he's doing is looking at what is it about these milkshakes that are helping people get into remission without medication. How can I make this a whole foods thing? So they're studying this from a nutrition point, and discovering loads of information about the microbiome and how that shows up differently in people with inflammatory bowel disease. And the other man is a researcher and a gastroenterologist, so he's a medical doctor as well as that's why he sees patients with inflammatory bowel disease, and that's like he's really interested in all the bits of research that are going to help patients not just suppress the immune system, but and they spoke about how do you get the gut to heal, and when it goes to being not inflamed when you're on the medications, why is it as soon as you come off the medication that inflammation comes back? And they're actually looking at what is that, they're trying to find what is that thing, how do we get it to heal and heal properly? And I was just like, oh, there are actually people out there and like that out of the box, and they kept talking about out of the box thinkers, and I was like, we need more of these people in the medical community. We need, yeah, absolutely, round of applause to them, because I was just like, finally there are people in this diagnosis that I'm living with just now talking about how do we find a solution to the problem, because inflammatory bowel disease, Scotland has the worst rates in the world. We are leading the way, and it's like, well, what is different here compared to countries that have got really low numbers or no numbers at all? How do we? And a lot of, and he, the one of the research, not the dietitian guy, the other guy, he did say it's not just about the physical body, it's the mind body connection. And I'm like nearly falling off my chair. I'm like, oh my God, amazing. But I don't know how much or if there's enough yet, but at least it's in their psyche, it's in the conversation of how much of the beliefs that we have. So if a parent has got inflammatory bowel disease and they have a child, chances of that child having inflammatory bowel disease is pretty high. There's talk of it being a genetic link, but epigenetics shows us that the environment is what triggers the
Yes.
activation of the genes, not the fact that the gene is mutated or is in existence. And then what
Yeah.
is that environment? Is it pollutants? Is it mindset? Is it passed on trauma? Is it all these things? But like you said earlier, it has to start in that internal. And I'm also then thinking about that first 7 years, that theta state, where that child is in that hypnotic state, taking on all that information. And as somebody who doesn't have children, this is not an easy thing for me to pass comment on. But if the parents are then in a constant stressed state, that child's going to absorb that. If the parents are having to go back to work very, very quickly after the birth, then that child's then going into care of other people. And then it's been a sponge of other people that you don't know what their thoughts and beliefs and whatever, that they are then programming your child. And here
Yeah.
it's okay, like you start school. I started school when I was 4 years old. In Scandinavia, you don't start school till you're 7. So you've had those first 7 years with the family unit being programmed in the family way rather than good luck.
Yeah.
Because if you experience that teacher in your first 7 years, how like what would that have done to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that I can't remember. I mean, I was in junior school when that happened, so I would have been past the 7-year-old threshold. But the trouble is, I struggled in the home environment as well. I mean, my my mother, love her. She was an amazing woman, but she was a. This probably won't mean that much to you, but she was a proper East Ender, like London East End. Um, she would slap me around the face if she heard me talking like that because she was actually a proper Cockney, you know. Um, but my father, he was born in Darlington, County Durham. Uh, I think it was 2011. Two no, 1911. He was born. Right, so and he he had absolutely no patience, no time, no he I was thick, you know. I was just thick, and he started that off really. Um, but the crazy bit is, Jen, it created a life for me where I was good at making money, and everything I did revolved around making money. You know, and I would turn my hand to many things, and I've done things that I probably shouldn't have done to make money, Jen. Yeah. Uh, but it put me in this position where I was able to afford to employ people to do the things I thought I couldn't do. Um, and it just reinforced that belief for me, really. But it didn't matter because I was making money until, of course, I got ill and my earning potential went down somewhat. Well, the first divorce put paid to that quite a bit as well. But you know, I do not regret any of my life because it's made me who I am today. And I'll share this. I'll share this with you because I believe the universe has always meant me to do what I'm doing now. And my life began in 1959 when I was born. And I was mentioning my mum, and I've got a brother who's 10 years older than me. I mean, my mother had quite a traumatic childhood and, stuff like that. But she had my brother and then desperately wanted another child, but had many, many miscarriages after that fact. And when she fell pregnant with me, medical science back then strongly suggested that she terminate the birth because my mother wasn't very well. And the medical science then said only one of you would survive the birth. And my mother was adamant that she was going to go full term with me, no matter what. And yeah, look, I was born premature, 1959. Yeah, it was early days in that arena, I would imagine. But we both survived that event, and I think in a way it set the landscape for me, that event, because I've got two clear examples in my life, two clear examples of where, and look, any health professional that is watching this or listening to this or anything, I love you, right? And I respect you and I think you're amazing, right? However, you're not always right. You know, you're not always right. And that's kind of the message that I'm trying to give out, really. We don't have to be, look, you introduced me to this, Jen, and I'm sorry, I am, what do they call it? Is it plagiarizing it?
Following it.
Well, whatever it is, but it's you might have a diagnosis, but you don't have to be the prognosis, and I love that.
So that came originally from David Hamilton's book, How
Oh,
Your
right.
How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body.
I've not heard of that one. All right.
Yeah, David Hamilton is amazing. I got introduced to this work when I first got diagnosed. It was through my friend Kim, and she said, definitely look at David's work. So I looked it up. He was then having a workshop in Glasgow that week, and I went along to it, and that was like his opening sentence, and him saying that, and I was like, yes, I'm
Mm.
here for it. This
What?
is my
Why
kind
is it?
of rebellion.
Why is it all the great things seem to be happening in Scotland and in Glasgow, Gil? Come on, because there don't seem to be anything like that happening down here.
What can I say? Well, I know David Hamilton has definitely done workshops down in London because he's a Hay House author and he does travel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So he has definitely done stuff down in London. But then if you haven't heard of him, you don't know to look for him, you don't know to
No,
see
and
it. And
I'm just not looking in the right place. But I kind of think everything great is happening in Scotland.
well, maybe you should move.
Yeah, it's a bit cold up there, though, isn't it?
You see, it is very cold and it is very damp. If you can
Mhm.
put up with that,
It'll suit
although
me,
it's
but
not.
not my wife.
But then I was going to say it's not really suitable for chronic illness because that dampness seeps into your bones
Mm,
and that can aggravate symptoms. So I spend a lot
mm,
of time with heaters on and eating foods that help dry out the dampness or bring warmth into the body.
mm. Yeah,
Lots of soups and stews.
yeah. Well, nice, nice. Love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. There is something special about Scotland because if you look over the history of stuff that has been created and invented, so much of it happened
Mm.
here.
Yeah, well, I have got Scottish ancestry.
Yeah.
I have, yeah, yeah, and on my mother's side, Hendry, Hendry is the family name,
Yeah.
Hendry, and
Enjoy it.
yeah, and yeah, Rugland as well, which is
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
do
I
like
mean,
Scotland.
it is very beautiful.
Mm,
It's a very beautiful country. When you travel about, when you get out of the city and you travel about, it's just like where are the people? Because
yeah,
you
nice.
can drive for miles and not see another person.
Mm,
Everybody's in the central belt.
nice. No, I like that. Don't like people. No, I do love people.
You're a very peoply person.
I am, but I do, I am. Yeah, I am. But I like my own company as well. Get
Same.
what I do. Look, when I do my public speaking, I always, and I'm going to say this to your audience as well, if I may.
Please.
And I start all of my talks with this. everything I'm about to say to you is delivered in the emotion of love. And I love each and every one of you. And I truly do. You know, it's my mission in for the rest of my life, Jen. This is how I'm going to spend my life, trying to empower others towards taking control for themselves in whatever way they want to do, because changing your thinking by reframing your beliefs is probably one of the most powerful things that you can actually do.
It is that taking radical responsibility and then action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also knowing that whatever has happened, it's in the past. You can't change it. You can only learn from it. And that's the empowerment bit. But most people get trapped in it. It's like that bloody revolving door. They keep ending up in the same place, you know, and it's a waste of time.
Yeah. It's approach with my sign off on all my emails is be kind, be curious.
Mm.
And I think that's like a nice way to approach it, because it is that then is allowing the mind to be open if you're curious about stuff, and
Very
approaching
powerful.
from a beginner's mindset. Like I always, when I'm presented with something, I'm like, right, but why, but why, but why, but why? How does that work? And even with diagnoses, I'm like, right, okay, you're telling me this, but how does that work all the way back here? And I go back to like basic high school biology. How does a cell work? Why does a cell multiply in the way it does? Why does it then not multiply in a healthy way? Like, and start to like build the picture up from there. Whatever it is that you're going through or experiencing, if you can unravel and look at the basic, the foundations, the most simple things. When I teach Pilates, and you learn all this new stuff and all this fancy way of doing things, and it's cool, it's cool, it's cool. But then sometimes you forget the fundamental foundations of, are you breathing? And are you paying attention to what's going on in your body? And anytime I've got somebody new and I go back to it, clients that have been with me for 14 years, they're like, I love when we do beginners classes, because there's loads of stuff I forget, because
Yeah.
they've been with me for so long, and they come sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, and I'm like, surely they must remember how to do this step, this step, this step. I don't need to keep reinforcing it, but actually you do. You need to go back and go, right, what are the foundations here? And that's like the pillars of lifestyle medicine, right? There's just absolute basic foundations. Let's
Yeah.
look at these first before you start doing all the other biohacking, fancy stuff. Because if you've not got the basics right, no amount of red light therapy or cold water therapy or whatever the next thing that somebody's trying to sell you is going to work, because you're building on sugary foundations.
I absolutely celebrate every single word that you just said there, my darling. You're talking my language. And it's all about, why do we need to know the ins and outs of a duck's arse about things? You know, it's for most people, we just want something that's going to work, and you don't need to know all the mechanics of it to know it that you feel better. You know, it's
Right.
I don't know, but
That is the metric. Does it make you feel better?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like the placebo effect, isn't it? I mean, and it's been proven. You can give someone a sugar-coated pill, and if they believe it's going to do them good, it probably will. So what's happening there is it's your mind, your thinking that's starting to create a new environment within your body. Look, I understand that you need to put good stuff in and nutrients and things like that, but everything starts with a thought. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even like if you take something as simple as food, if you think that food is bad for you, but you're going to eat it anyway, it's going to have a much more negative effect on your body than if you think this is food and I'm hungry and I'm eating it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's nourishing me.
Yeah.
Your
I mean,
your chemical reaction to that happens
yeah.
inside is completely influenced by those thought patterns.
Yeah, well, you're creating a frequency within your body that's going to stimulate hormones and all of that sort of stuff that's going to create the environment that you think it's going to create. It's going to help you on that way, isn't it? I when I was listening to you look, I'm not an expert in anything really, right? And definitely not the gut microbiome. Okay, definitely not the gut microbiome because it's like this, you know, well, I don't know, I don't know. But I do believe that good health is created by enhancing your gut microbiome. Right? I do truly believe that, right? And I actively do things, fermented foods and stuff like that to create the best gut microbiome that I can. One of the things that I do know is 70% of your immune system lives in the gut. One of the particular problems with multiple sclerosis is when it gets activated, my immune system, it will go round and it will attack my nervous system and create inflammation. Yeah. So I think for myself, well, getting my gut microbiome into the best state of health that I can, it's got to be good for me, isn't it? Right. And occasionally I have a stool test done. And the latest one that I had, and it's a blind test. So it's a company that I use and I do use one of their products, but they don't know me and it's blind, right? And the results came back, my gut microbiome scored 8 out of 10, which is quite high.
Amazing.
But the nutritionist who was delivering the information went, we're seeing a really high proportion of anti-inflammatory gut bacteria in your gut. We don't ever see this. Right? And I went, oh, well, that's a good thing then, because I live with an inflammatory illness. That's maybe why I'm doing so well. And I don't know what I'm doing. But I tell you what I do, I listen to my body and I work out what's actually going on. And I think, hang on a minute, what have I done? Because I ain't feeling so good. Oh, I'm feeling pretty great. I'll do a bit more of that.
Yeah.
And that's all I do. I listen. I listen. As I do, I listen to human beings. I listen to clients. I listen now. Instead of I didn't ever listen because I knew and I had a closed mind. No more. I listen.
Your own body is the expert in what it needs
Yeah.
from a nutritional standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, stimulation, whether that's a high stimulation you need or low stimulation. And in society, we are constantly told to override that. Like when you start school, you're not allowed to go to the toilet when you need, you're not allowed to eat or drink when you need, you do it when the bell rings and you're told that you're allowed to. So that gets conditioned into you when you're in that theta state. And then as an adult, or even you come out of high school or come out of university and go into the real world, and even there's still a bit of structure around when you're allowed to go to the toilet, when you're allowed to eat. But then when
Mm.
you get diagnosed with an illness and somebody says, "Well, you're gonna have to start listening to your body," and you think, "What does that mean? How am I gonna do that? Like, what?
Yeah.
What? What?" And then it's having to practice and start becoming aware of what is it that you're currently doing right now, and how do you feel when you're doing what you're doing right now. So don't change anything. Let's just explore. And this is something that I do for myself. And if I was working with a client, I would say to them, I want you to do this. Most of them don't because they forget. But I've got a chart on my fridge door, and what date it is, what day of my cycle, how many times I've gone to the toilet, what the quality of my poo's been, what my mood is, what my energy is, how my sleep has been, what have I eaten that day, what have I drunk that day, what activities have I done. And when I started tracking that out, I could start to see cycles, because anytime I have a loose bowel movement, the first thought can be, oh shit, am I in a flare? But when you start to
Yeah.
track it, then you can start to go, hang on a minute, no, I ate such and such that day, or maybe that was what it was, because every time I eat that particular food, the next day I have that issue. So let's tweak that. Or, oh, that's where I am in my cycle, or the seasons are different, or whatever it is. But without knowing what you currently do and paying attention to particularly mood and energy, you can't start to make the right changes for yourself.
Yeah.
I think, like,
Yeah.
so
I agree. I agree. Apart from obviously, I don't chart my cycle. No, for some reason I don't know. No. But again, I agree with everything that you've said. There's often, I mean, I don't do this so much now, but I did used to refer to multiple sclerosis as my best friend. That best friend that we've all got that best friend that you don't see for months, weeks, months, years sometimes. But when they come back into your life, you just pick it up from where you left off, don't you?
Mhm.
Yeah, well, multiple sclerosis is my best friend because when I've been doing something I shouldn't do, it comes back and kicks me up the arse.
Yes.
But I've removed it from me. I've removed it from me. It's it's external to me.
Yeah, I try to refer to Crohn's as the Crohn's rather than my Crohn's, because I
Yeah.
don't want to be an owner of it. Same with the endometriosis. It's the. It's not. It's not me. It's not part of my identity. It's something that I experience, and and it's. I don't always get it right, because you sometimes just
No.
say things, but it's when I'm being conscious of it, that's not mine. I don't own that. I've happily passed that back. Thanks very much. Sever ties with it at any time. But I do appreciate that something it will come back like that, like the best friend going, "What the fuck are you doing?" I've
Yeah, no,
been looking
I
after
love that.
yourself. I have come back to check on you. All right, okay, I'll start looking after myself again, and you can pack your bags and go.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I do use that terminology myself. Okay, I say to people, why are you identifying with it? You own it.
Mm.
But you can't give it away, can you? Just refer to it differently.
Yeah,
You know, I've worked with quite a few stroke patients who own it. And things change for them when they start talking about the stroke, the. It starts to become something that's external to them. You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same as well with more, I'm going to say more common issues like anxiety and depression. People refer my anxiety, my depression, and I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's change the my to the, and detach from it because it's something that you're experiencing. It's not who you are. I'm an anxious person. No, you're experiencing anxiety because you're in a situation that maybe you're uncomfortable in, and that's okay. You're allowed to.
But that's, we need a label. We need a reason. We need a label, and we need a reason for why we're behaving and acting the way we are. What I would say here, and again, it's probably controversial, but with mental health issues, in the majority of cases, and I'm not saying in all, because some people have damage and stuff like that, but in the majority of cases, it's contaminated thinking that's creating your reality, not a disorder, not a syndrome. Those disorders and those syndromes are created so that the medical profession, and mainly the pharmaceutical profession, can medicate you and make money out of you. But it's contaminated thinking that's creating your reality. That's what the problem is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big old world to turn, it's a big ship to turn round, but we are
Yeah.
there with our paddles out.
Yeah.
We are turning that ship around, come hell or high water.
I don't know what you think, Jen, but you know, I'm considerably older than you, my darling. Young 30-year-old lady that you are, yeah.
I was like, hang on a minute, it's only 20 years.
You what?
It's only 20 years. I'm 46, you're 66. It's only 20 years.
Yeah.
It's
But
not a lot.
what I'm seeing in the world, I'm seeing young people that have got a different view. They're out in this world going up with this. We are not going to fucking put anymore. Lots of the things that, especially my generation, have created for them. You know, um, and I see change coming in our societies now, generated and fueled by young people, because I think they're starting to realise, they're not dialing into the programming that we were given. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I didn't go to school that much, really, I suppose, and at any opportunity after the age of 13, I would be working down the market or down the snooker hall or earning a few quid. Um, so I didn't get contaminated so much with that indoctrinating that you get through the schooling regime, and I've always been a bit of a stubborn git, I suppose.
My mum used the word willful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know.
that is that double-edged sword for the young people today is they're not being, they have the access to the internet, so they have all the information in the world, so they're not necessarily indoctrinated into this particular person's way of thinking, but they then might be indoctrinated into that person over there. But then there's enough information, hopefully, getting through that there's still a little bit of critical thinking coming in. I don't know the way the algorithms are now, like they've really fine-tuned them. I don't know how the next generation are going to be. But
Mm,
the sort of the kids now that are maybe in their 20s, early 30s have had access to the internet before it became very polarizing. Whereas I was here before the internet, so I know life before having a computer and after, and you go, oh wow, this is amazing. But the ones that have grown up with it didn't have those algorithms of the polarization, whereas the younger ones again are now going to have this polarization. So those of us that are of the older generations are going to have to teach them more about critical thinking and don't
mm,
just believe it because that's what the internet said. The same as I don't watch the news and I don't watch TV, so I'm not really influenced by that stuff that's going on. And at school, I was a daydreamer. I wasn't paying any attention to what they were saying because you would go, I'm not really interested in this, la 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 la, daydreaming away, and that was always on my report cards. Jennifer's a daydreamer. She would do better if she paid attention in class. I was just like, nah, there's no programming this one. Which I think has come is to my benefit to a point, because I do have more of an open way of that I'll learn what I want to learn. And if it doesn't interest me, like people will be like, oh, you're really knowledgeable, you put so much information. And I'm like, I've got so much information about this small pocket of stuff. If you ask me about any of that over there, not got a clue.
Well, Jen, I'm going to say this. I think that you are an amazing human being,
Thank you.
and I'm actually proud to know you and call you my friend.
Thank you. And right back at you. I absolutely adore you. And I was so excited that we were going to meet in real life. And then when I did meet you, you met my expectations. You know, sometimes you meet people online and they're like really charismatic online, and then you meet them in real person and there's a bit of a disjoint, and there wasn't that with you. In fact, you're better in real life because you give good hugs and you've got the lovely joy and your energy is just amazing.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to speak about before we wrap this up?
I think for me, we've covered it, haven't we? You know, I can't think of anything. I think I'd like to leave your audience with a quote, if I may.
Please, yes.
And it's a quote made by a guy called Sydney Banks, right? And he was a Glaswegian, funny enough.
We're everywhere.
Yeah. And it's probably one of my most favourite quotes, right? And he said, thought is not reality. Yet it is through our thoughts our realities are created. Think about that, guys. Change your thought, change your reality.
Yeah,
It works.
it does indeed. It does indeed. So, best place for people to find you if they want to connect with you or follow?
Okay. Well, I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I think if you put in the hashtag BVOMT into Google, you're going to find me. And my website is www.frierthinking, that's FRWR thinking.co.uk.
Cool. I'll put
And if
those
you,
links into the show notes so that if anybody doesn't have a pen or doesn't remember, they'll be able to find them and just click straight through from there. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You have been an absolute joy, which I didn't expect anything less, to be fair. Like, I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation, and we've gone all over the place with it. So I just want to thank you so much for being a guest.
thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Pleasure.